Hello everybody and welcome on today's video. I've been looking forward to do this one. It's an azalea I picked up from the trash last year, and it was in a deep pot. I cut away with a saw half of the roots and I planted it in this mica pot. Some of the trunks were really growing towards each other, so I inserted a few of these foam wedges, which I should remove now. That's one thing I did. I hope that it worked. Well, it did, yeah. And so I did another thing, removing a few roots that were growing around the trunks and already caused some issues, which you cannot see, of course, now because there's moss growing all over it. But I think that this plant is well, doing quite okay. It lost a whole lot of its leaves during the hot summer of 2018. So now it is leaving out and I can see what is alive and what is not. And I can start to make some decisions about the front of the tree and what I want to keep on this tree and what I will remove. So first of all, I'm going to clean up all these weeds and moss, and this will give us a better view on what we have to work with. So let's start with this. So we have here this, I think it's called Irish moss, which is a rather disastrous plant. If you want to get rid of it, you have to, well, almost bare root the plant, because it's always going to have some remains in the soil. Or you have to be very attentive, and every time you see it, just pull it out, and then you can get rid of it too. This moss is covering the root base and has to go too, because when you choose the front, it's the first styling of a tree, well, the roots and how they are coming out of the ground are an important part of your choice for the front of the tree. So I'm gonna clean this up and I'll be back in a second. So pulling out big weeds leaves you with big gaps. You see, it's quite big gaps. Well, of course, well, the tree was absolutely not pot bound. And so I think when I find a front, I maybe will have to repot this tree, put it a little higher in the pot, maybe. Well, this is one thing that is, of course, not acceptable. At the first thing you have to know is that you cannot have two trunks exactly one next to each other. There's always one that should be in the back and one in the front. So I'll take the opportunity of repotting this tree by well, choosing a front, of course. Now, how to choose a front? Well, this is going to be a long talk, and I'll try to explain why I choose one front and not another. So maybe you'll agree with me, maybe you won't. I guess I'll hear it in the comments. Now, if you look at the roots, I think there's not a part of this tree here where I can say that it is not interesting. So that's good, because I have roots from all sides, but some are higher than others. You see here the root. This is not a very good root. It's going to the side, but because I do not know what I have under it, it might be a little risky at this point to get them all off. So I don't really know what I should do about that. This is a crossing root, which is certainly not good, but you cannot do everything the same year. And choosing a front we have to take all these things in consideration. So this is definitely not a good route. This will have to come off. On the other side it is radial if it starts from here. So yeah, we have to have a better view on this. Here I don't have a whole lot of roots, a few small ones. So, because I'm not sure of the roots, I will have to look at the trunks. That's important. And see what I'm going to keep. So let's have a view from a distance. So there are a few things that I must keep in consideration before making big decisions. First of all, this is an azalea, so it's not a tree. So if it is, if you have to choose a natural form for this tree, well, it does not really exist. These are shrubs, and well, it's not like a pine tree or a spruce or a maple that has a natural shape. So this I must not worry about. So that's one good thing. I'm a little more free. On the other side, azaleas, well, they have a problem. They break really easily, and very brittle trees. So thick branches like this, if they are straight, well, they will be straight. There's nothing you can do about that. The smaller branches, on the other hand, you can still bend. You have to be very cautious about this, but it's possible. So, what do I think? Well, this trunk is a little thicker than this one, that's for sure, and so it might become a front tree, but it's not really much thicker. On the other side it has this horrible hole here, coming from a root that was crawling around it, so that's not very nice as a front. The tree is going this way, the main branches. On the other hand, if I remove this thick one, the tree is coming this way, because this is becoming the leader. Then it would, of course, be very interesting for the taper. So that's a possibility. But if I remove this one, the thickest, I have to remove probably this one too. And then the thickest trunk will be this one. Is it bendable? It still is. There is green here, there is green here, so this might work. Then I have this as a front, or this as a front, and I have this strange branch here that maybe I can remove, that I don't need, but I'm going to have a big hole here if I do that. Azaleas are not really easy healing trees. So that's another possibility. If I keep this as a front, like so, this might become the leader. I have back branching here, quite a thick one. Then I can maybe keep this or this as another leader, but remove the thick one here, and I have some things that can be wired in place to make some backing branches. I see that it's sprouting on older wood, so that's also interesting to know. So there are different possibilities. I'm going to say nothing right now. I'm just going to turn this tree and let you make up your own mind. So I'm not really quite sure about what I want to do, but one thing I'm quite sure of is that these two portions, the tallest trunks, are really straight, and You cannot bend them. There will never be interesting parts. They make the tree very tall, which makes it look young, and that's what you don't want. So I'm quite sure that I will not use the big ones, so I'm going to get them off. This one too. So this changes the perspective, you will agree on that. So let's see what we can do now. So one thing we forget too often is that a tree is supposed to be three-dimensional, so that the back of the tree is very important. It gives us this depth and sense of reality. So if I look from this side, I don't have a whole lot. So this is supposed to be something like the front. Here I have a few branches which I can work with to become a backing branch. This I'm not sure that is alive. It breaks, but they always break. But I don't think there's any living tissue here. No, this is dead. It's dead. Up to here it's alive, so that's good. It means that this portion is alive. This is a dead stump. This is dead too. These are really little shoots and you don't think that you can use them, but who knows in the future. This is a stump, so I can remove that. So the only real back portions that I can use are this one and maybe this one here. This is already too thick to bend, it's going to break, so I'll keep it or I'll remove it, but I'm not going to work with it. So this might become the backing. There are some shoots here that might become part of the backing. So from your point of view, this to me looks an acceptable front. So of course you have to imagine it in the pot without looking at the direction of the pot now. Why? Because I have a nice root here. I'm not sure that this root is alive, but I honestly don't think so. So I cannot say that this is going to make a good root base, but there are some roots here. So I might as well try to grow these ones, and it could work. There are no roots here, so that's a bummer. The only problem I have is if I choose this as a front, is that the two trunks are coming towards each other. But I can of course remove this portion, and I also noticed that these are in fact two separate trees, so maybe I can just try to open this up, but this is not going to be easy. But a few centimeters would make a big difference. I don't think I'm going to need this. I want to remove this portion. This way I can grow this as a back branch here, but keep it quite low. I think this is possible. This would be the new leader. This I'm not going to use. This could be some backing branch, and this could become also some back branch. And I can remove this portion. So let's do that. I'm quite sure about that. Okay. So this is my new leader. I don't want a second leader. And this is my front. This is long, but I can still bend it, so it's not uninteresting. This is too long, but I have growth here, so let's get rid of this and get rid of this. This is that piece. This is what I need for a backing. This is it's possible to wire this. This is very long and there is absolutely no taper, so I can always remove that and that. Now there is some more taper, and if one of these decides to grow, I can always cut it back here, which I'm gonna do. Now if this is supposed to be the leader, this cannot be higher, and I'll remove it. There's some growth here, so it might become a secondary trunk. Here I have a little shoot, so this part I think is dead. Yeah, and I'm gonna cut it up to here. There's some growth here. You see, it's bendable when it's young. This is an interesting branch, but too long, too leggy, and by cutting this one I'm going to improve the taper, and I'm going to remove the dead parts. So it keeps us, I still have this branch as a problem, which might become eventually something like a tertiary trunk. In this case I think it should have some taper, and I'm going to remove this and surely this. And I think that's it. This I'm going to keep. I'm going to clean up a little more this stump here. Yeah. Sorry, I lost my microphone. Now I'm not really familiar with azaleas, so I don't know if they die back a whole lot or not. So I'm going to be very careful, allowing it to die back a little. But I need to have something that looks like a tree, you know. Same here, this stump is really too much of a stump. It's blocking the view. So at least one part can heal over now. That's better. There's a stump here from last year. And one part is rotting here, I see, so I'm going to remove a little more. Okay, I'm kind of curious what it says now. You know what, I'm going to get it out of the pot and plant it back in the same pot, but in the right position. So I'm going to mark that with a piece of wire, and then we'll lift it out of the pot a little more, clean up the surface, and we will see if we have a good root spread. Okay, so let's get some extra soil, etc. So I'm just gonna get it out. I think I'm going to do that above this tray. Get it out. As you see, there are, well, it grew, you know. The drainage screens, I have to put them back, but I'm trying not to disturb the roots. No. So now I'm adding 3 or 4 centimeters of fresh substrate, because the tree won't get a repot in the coming 3 to 4 years. So this is rather an important moment. So this is what I think might become the new front. Something like that maybe. if I put it too much this way, I'm going to have trouble to hide this wound, and this is a whole lot in the back then. So not exactly on the same spot, but something like that. So I'm going to put my pot right here and turn the tree like so. So you see this one is a little more in the back, and I think this is what I can do to improve this. Going to try to lean it a little forward, and now I'm going to add the rest of the soil. So first working in what I already have, and then adding some soil, and that's gonna be it. So I'll be back in a couple of seconds for you.